Hey everyone, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for the week of June 14th to the 20th of 2021. All right, so a quiet week astrologically, not a whole lot of aspects taking place. However, there is one very important one that is a yearly energy that has been going on since February. And this is Saturn, the planet of structure and responsibility and discipline, squaring up to Uranus, the planet of change and freedom and creating a life that speaks more to our true self and our excitement. So these are very different energies. One deals with structure, one deals with change. And so they are in this square, which is essentially challenging ourselves to implement both. And I think if there has been anything since around the February time that you know is something you want to accomplish or achieve that will produce more freedom and change in your life and speaks to that excitement, I think it can be a very constructive week to challenge ourselves to implement this stuff further for the remainder of the year. Now, it's also a good week of challenging ourselves because we are in the first quarter phase of what is this eclipse month. The eclipse was last week, and so now we do come to our first challenges of this cycle, of this lunar cycle, which will be about midweek. And in this context, how can we further develop the Taurus qualities of our life path? Taurus is all about self-reliance and resourcefulness and mustering up those inner resources, but also external resources as well, having abundance and comforts in the natural world and the beauty and taste. It's abundant energy, those inner and outer resources, very good to continue to focus on, and this week challenge ourselves from anything new that did start last week with this. All right, so no other major aspects this week, but at the very end of the week on Sunday, Jupiter will be going retrograde. Nothing major, but subtly as we get into next week, maybe starting to rethink some of the opportunities we've seen this year. We start to go through a perspective shift, start to re-examine some of the things we've been open-minded about, and start to look in different ways. Of course, Mercury is still retrograde, so it's just a great time right now to be flexible, try new things, and again, examine things from different perspectives. All right, so let's go and take a look at all this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so here is the sky for this week. We're going to be looking at this for each day of the week, starting first with Monday, June 14th. And as you can see here, we are using the visible sky, which is very different from mainstream astrology, which unfortunately does not use the visible sky. And so the signs are different. The signs will change. For example, that eclipse we just had was in the constellation of Taurus, if you were to look at it visually, but in mainstream, you may have heard it in Gemini. So if you are new to this channel, definitely check out that link down below for more information on true sidereal astrology. All right, so let's do a bit of a recap. As you can see here, not a whole lot of aspects taking place. We do, of course, have this very important one, Saturn squaring up to Uranus we'll talk about. But I think a lot of the energy of the week will be placed around the location of these planets. So let's start first with the Sun and Mercury, who are in Taurus, which is where we had that eclipse last week. Taurus the bull. This is all about cultivating those inner and outer resources. So the Sun will be here, finishing here this week. At the end of the week, we'll be getting closer to Gemini. But still a great week, and particularly to challenge ourselves to implement some of those inner and outer resources. So inner strength, self-reliance, resourcefulness, all right, mustering up those natural talents, natural abilities, that inner strength that helps us cultivate our values and the things we want to, attract in our life. But of course, this is the external resources as well. So anything involving cultivating the resources, which could be anything from nature, a great time of spending time in nature, maybe with beautiful things, abundance, cultivating more comfortable energy of like luxury, enjoyment, sensual things, right? All of this of grounding into earth, grounding into ourselves, our inner and outer resources, I think is fantastic to be focused on. And again, about midweek to challenge ourselves to implement, since that is the first quarter, the action phase of the cycle. Now, Mercury is retrograde here as well, so it is good to be, again, flexible and adaptive and rethink some of these things, rethink our values, maybe go back and maybe recultivate some of these inner and outer resources. So good to be flexible, have a plan A, B, C, and D. Things do change and information changes with Mercury retrograde, And so it's good to be as adaptive as possible during the process. But always a good time of implementing things so long as it's with the intention of making mistakes and trying new things and experimenting, which is what Mercury retrograde is great for, because we learn so much during this process. And the more we do the more we're willing to learn, the more we're willing to experiment, the more new information, new perspectives can certainly come in. But again, it's all about Taurus the bull, cultivating our grounded, resourceful side. Now, Venus is in Gemini, so what we're valuing, what we're enjoying right now, is probably some of the mental or even communicative or sometimes even social elements of life. So it is very good to be enjoying, maybe picking up that book, maybe doing some writing, using our minds a bit can be very enjoyable. In those relationships, it's a great time of sharing ideas, sharing information, conversing, sometimes connecting with peers, those of equal status, sometimes the marketplace or neighbors. There is this enjoyment to be had around sharing information, sharing ideas, and just exchanging with others in general, which is fantastic. Now, Mars is still in Cancer, so when we're taking action, it's very good to pursue things that are more important to us on an emotional level. Things we would consider like home or family, or things like family. There's this very protective nature we have collectively right now, which is great to create a protective environment for ourselves, care and nurture for ourselves, but also for others. When we are taking action, I think it's great to see how we can care for those that are maybe close to us emotionally or just in everyday experiences, have that more protective, caring, nurturing quality, which I think is great. All right, so that's the placements here with the planets. So let's go and talk about this Saturn squaring up to Uranus, which is the second contact. Again, it's a yearly energy. We had the first contact back around February 17th of earlier this year. So this is where Saturn, the planet of what takes time, building structures, responsibility, the long road, right? The structures, the grounding elements, squaring up to Uranus, which is the electrifying elements. This is about change, freedom, excitement, innovation. And so these are very different energies. And so the challenge this year for all of us is to see how we can implement both. How can we achieve and accomplish with Saturn, but to do so in such a way that gives us more excitement in our life or gives us more freedom in our life, right? There's often a push and pull with the squares where we tend to want to go to one extreme or the other at certain times, either too much reserve, too much grounding energy with Saturn, but other times maybe too much wanting freedom or an impulsivity. So it's good to listen to both. How can we build constructively these things that do lead to more change in our life or more freedom-based, give us more freedom, and also speak more to our true self. To build a life that speaks to that true self is extremely constructive with this. So it's the middle contact. The middle contact is during the retrograde period. Saturn is retrograde at the moment. So it is good to be kind of, re-examining things, especially right now with Mercury retrograde. But nonetheless, I think this week and perhaps coming into this week, it is very good to build towards these things, right? To take a nice step in the right direction, to listen to that excitement, create some new, build some new things that, are just different, to give us more freedom and speak more to that true self. All right, and then the final contact will be at the end of the year, in which a lot of that starts to get cultivated. So I think it's going to be a very constructive second half of the year for implementing this energy. Usually the first half of the contacts, which was this first half of the year, we're more just acclimating to the energy, getting used to it. But the second half is fantastic for that actual implementation of it and seeing progress with it. But again, just while Mercury's retrograde this week and a bit next week, good to be flexible nonetheless. All right, so very constructive time yearly, collectively. Now let's talk about each day of the week, which the lunar placements will be playing a strong role since we don't have a lot of personality planets forming many aspects. We do have the sun squaring up to Neptune coming out from Sunday, so Monday is still a good day for bringing a little more peace into our life. If there's any going to extremes with Neptune, which is about either wanting to find peace or hide away or maybe some lower energy or needing to rest a little bit, it is good to implement some constructive peace into our life, some rest, some presence, maybe spiritual activities, maybe creative things that are more important on a soul level. There's this watery energy to be working with on Monday. But Monday does have the Cancer energy as well, which is also water, as we shift into Leo for the rest of the week. So the first half of Monday, good for that protective side of ourselves to create that protective environment for ourselves and others. Now, the bulk of particularly the work week here, all the way from late Monday through until late Thursday, we'll have expressive Leo. So this is the challenge of the cycle. This is the first quarter. We've got all this grounding energy with Taurus, which is about building stability and, again, resourcefulness and resources, building our inner and outer resources. But then Leo is just about having fun and expressing ourselves and a bit of that playful energy. So if there's any way to incorporate both this week, I think is great. Especially in the context of challenging ourselves. How can we be, resourceful, steady, stable, but also playful, expressive, fun-loving, getting into some of that really self-expression is great this middle part of the week, particularly that late Monday through late Thursday. Now, once we do get to the late Thursday time period, and then for the whole weekend, we do have even more grounding energy. This is where we do get to the trine between the sun and moon, where it's a little more supportive. We're coming out of those first challenges of the cycle to integrate that Leo. And now we have just a nice synergy with the earth signs. So in this context, Virgo is all about improvement. And so late Thursday through Sunday, great for improvement, improving things, improving ourselves, maybe our life, maybe developing some good habits or some good routines. Could be very constructive. Virgo is all about creating automation and habits, things that become more ingrained and automatic that produce structure in our life and produce stability. All right, so great for those habits, routines, work, service, and improvement orientation. All right, and then the weekends with Jupiter going retrograde. Again, we don't feel this very strongly personally, but going into next week, it is good to start to re-examine some of the things we've been open-minded about. Jupiter has been in Aquarius, which is about being open-minded about the future, maybe some future possibilities, some future aspirations. And so, that's been great to be open-minded about future things in terms of, again, kind of like that Uranus of what's going to give us more freedom and change in our life. So during the retrograde, we get a bit of a pause with this. Jupiter's going to go backwards. We're going to start to rethink, reevaluate maybe our future aspirations, maybe these potentials we've seen this year. Sometimes some things collectively are involving friends or groups with this. So starting to rethink our aspirations and our future values and collective values as well. So great to do that. Again, we won't necessarily feel that personally, but it is good to start to rethink that stuff into next week. There sometimes can be a shift happening with anything that's been involving that for you personally, involving this expansion of future vision. Could be a step in the right direction with it, but it'll usually be a redoing, rethinking, reevaluating kind of energy during that retrograde process. All right, everyone. So that is the week in a nutshell. Put simply, is we're in an eclipse cycle. This is a great time of really developing our life path, which right now collectively is around Taurus the bull, the cultivation of our inner and outer resources. We do have that square with Saturn and Uranus, which is great for building more freedom and change in our life, and likely a nice step in the right direction this week, even though Mercury's retrograde. Still some things to be rethinking, reevaluating throughout this process. It's a great week to challenge ourselves just in general with the first quarter phase of the cycle, and particularly how we can build more stability yet have fun and express ourselves and be playful with Leo. And then I do want to mention that at the very end of the week, which is mostly going to be energy we're going to feel next week, the sun is going to start to get closer to Gemini. So once we do get to Monday of next week, sun will be closer to Gemini, which starts to put more of a focus on the communicative and mental elements. A lot like we were feeling with this Venus in Gemini, we'll start to focus more on with the sun, gaining information, gaining knowledge, and perhaps exchanging that information with others. All right, so everyone have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to click that like button if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're not yet subscribed to this channel, be sure to subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'll see you all next week for the next astrology forecast. Take care.